So, the cost of living in Australia, everyone says it's completely ludicrous and completely over the top. But how realistic is the cost of living? And as a Brit who lived in Australia, is it actually as bad as people seem? Let's get into it. But before we go any further, give the video a big fat thumbs up and make sure to give it a subscribe so you don't miss another video. So the cost of living in Australia is often described as too high and too expensive. And to me, personally, I didn't find it too bad. I would describe it very similar to a London-ish cost of living. As I lived primarily in Sydney, I did do a bit in Brisbane, but we all know how that went. But yes, I did do basically a very small stint in Brisbane. Now that cost of living was ludicrous. Brisbane is so expensive. And I mean, food-wise especially, I found it to be almost double Sydney, which was ridiculous. And we still need to get to the bottom of this. As a community on this channel, we need to get to the bottom of why that was the case when I was there. Basically, when I was in Sydney, hostel prices when I first got there in kind of early to mid-October, can't remember the exact date, I think it was the 14th, I believe I got there, 14th, 15th of October, so kind of mid-October. Hostel prices were all right, food wasn't too bad. It was a little bit more on the higher end, but nothing too bad. But then as time, excuse me, as time went on and you got closer and closer to Christmas and summer kicking into swing, the prices in Sydney especially just skyrocketed. They just went absolutely sky high, and I'm still not too sure why they went. It was kind of overnight. They just kind of just did that. And they just decided to just take off. And they pretty much doubled, because what I was previously paying for 2 nights in a hostel, I was now paying for a week. So it had got ludicrous quite quickly. And you needed to start looking at accommodation elsewhere. So whether that was just outside the CBD or maybe in a little town somewhere. And that is one of my fatal mistakes during my Australia trip. It was the fact I stayed too centralised in the CBD of both Brisbane and Sydney. I didn't really go out of the CBD at all. It was just a bad move in all parts, because being locked to the CBD, your prices are naturally higher anyway. But then when seasonal prices kick in, you're going to get outpriced pretty quickly. So I will admit that error on my part. But overall, when people were going, there's a cost of living, I can kind of see it to an extent in Brisbane, but not so much in Sydney. But if we add housing to it, yeah, there is definitely an issue Australia-wise. But if you then expand it out of Australia and look globally, in my personal opinion, Australia's cost of living is nothing compared to other countries. It's a very minor cost of living problem in the global scheme of things. Because in my eyes, the UK is still 10 times worse. We're running out of houses to put people in. But obviously, if you're looking Sydney, Bondi, King's Cross, Paddington, Sydenham, CBD, North Sydney, yeah, you're going to potentially be looking at a very high accommodation price. You potentially move out towards the Blue Mountains or Parramatta, Blacktown, somewhere around there, prices are probably going to start dropping. So it's all about basically structuring yourself up so you can take full advantage of the CBD without being on the CBD. So what I would actually quite heavily suggest is, if you're going to Australia, you look at the train line. So if you look at Transport for New South Wales you could actually find train lines and look at where they end and work your way backwards. And then have a look at all of those towns and just see where you want to stay and see if there's any accommodation available, maybe on Flatmates AU or something like that, where you can easily get some accommodation. And yeah, it could all be very nice, because if you're complaining about the cost of living in the CBD, you're basically asking for it. Because it's naturally an inflated price by default anyway. So yeah, I think it is blown a bit out of proportion in conclusion, but I don't think it's ludicrous. I don't actually think it's as bad as people make it out to be. It's definitely Australia-wise high, but globally, no. But that's going to wrap it up here, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Give it a big fat thumbs up if you did enjoy, and I will see you in the next episode. Peace out, guys.